Welcome to a Christian comment. This will actually be the first of the series to be published, where I, a Christian, will comment on various issues happening in the culture and news. Today it'll be tweets. And I'll be commenting, of course, from a Christian perspective and from a biblical perspective. Well, as you know, recently there has been a news leak of the efforts of the Supreme Court to overturn Roe v Wade. It's likely that that is going to happen. Now, if it does in fact happen, this will be one of the greatest moral victories in the culture of my lifetime. And I thank God that something like this can still happen in this world in which we live. Thank God indeed for this. I pray that it does in fact happen. And so many prayers should be offered to God in appreciation and gratitude. But there's been a lot of tweets, of course, and many other things, but I've got several tweets lined up, and I mainly picked these randomly to give my comments on. We as Christians not only care about Jesus' perspective as king, which I will make comments on, but we as Christians care about truth, which of course Jesus is demands that we be truthful and honest. This includes being logical, and I want to point out many of the problems and the things people say. Well, so for example, and by the way, I'm, for the first time, starting to use Twitter. I've had the account for a long time, so I've started using it. I don't know much about it yet, exactly how it works, but so, let's start here. John Fugelsang, at John Fugelsang, says, hint, if you oppose abortion rights, which Jesus never mentioned, because you are so deeply Christian, but support the death penalty, which Jesus directly opposed, the rest of us are no longer obliged to take your Christianity seriously. Well, John, it's hard for us to take your understanding and representation of Christianity seriously because that's pretty faulty. Listen, everybody's trying to increase their understanding of the Bible, including us Christians, but that's pretty bad. I mean, these are fundamental things which are pretty easy to see in the New Testament. First of all, Jesus doesn't mention abortion explicitly because it wasn't an issue in his day. Now, it would be absurd to expect that Jesus would address any or every social issue of our day in his day when they weren't all happening in his day. But it would also be absurd and inconsistent not to think that many of Jesus' teachings do say something about these issues. Well, do not kill, of course. If you talk about him opposing the death penalty, what do you think abortion is? It is a death penalty for just existing and being an inconvenience to the mother. That's what they are being penalized for. You're an inconvenience, you're a hindrance, you're a responsibility that I, the mother, do not want, so I'm going to bring capital punishment upon you. Very inconsistent, John. You need to fix that. Obviously, Jesus' teaching on loving your neighbor for yourself, his care for children, God's care for children, and obviously, do not kill, relate exactly to abortion. This is pretty easy to see. But the idea that he opposed death penalty, by the way, well, he opposed murder. He opposed people killing the innocent, which is, again, abortion. But actually, the death penalty itself, executed justly by legal authorities, he did not oppose. He affirmed the Old Testament law as something that came from God, that was inspired, and it has lots of capital punishment, including for murder, which is what abortion is for, about. Also, Kirsten Powers, at Kirsten Powers, if you think abortion is wrong, she says, don't get an abortion. It's not okay to impose a religious view on others. Why should a Jew or Muslim, for example, e.g. means, for example, have to live according to your interpretation of the Bible? If you don't get this, please don't ever use the phrase religious freedom again. Yeah, well, so, first of all, if you think abortion is wrong, now they, of course, say abortion is wrong because it is murder. And this wouldn't be the case, Ms. Powers, obviously, where we would say, well, we think murder is wrong, but we're not going to tell you that you shouldn't do it. That's not what you would say also, by the way. You, I assume, would say murder is wrong, but wouldn't approach it as, but I'm not going to impose that as a religious view. Well, murder should be opposed. You're killing babies. That's bad, Ms. Powers. You could leave religion out of it if you want. Killing babies is a bad thing. And it's murder. It's not just a neutral thing. My opinion versus yours. But I, for one, actually don't use the phrase religious freedom much. I don't come at this from a constitutional perspective, although I might discuss that. And it is, in fact, law, by the way. The Constitution is law, and you could legitimately talk about that, and many people do. But I come at it from a disciple of a king, Jesus, who did claim to be king, who talked about the kingdom of God, who did say all authority has been given to him. And even though I get it, the non-Christian culture won't accept that, but it doesn't matter. I'm still going to represent him because he is a king. And he, as any king would, demands submission, not at the threat of violence or physical harm. He sends disciples out to reason and to try to change people's hearts through the terms of surrender, which is the gospel. And I'm not preaching the gospel as a whole here in a Christian comment, but I am spreading principles of the Bible and Christ himself. I'm trying to change your mind from a very faulty and absurd and unloving and hateful viewpoint that you have to support abortion, the killing of children in the womb. And I would say that it's not a matter of religious freedom, really, for me. It's a matter of Jesus claims that he is a king over the whole world. And I'm telling people they need to repent, that's what he said, and submit. When he returns again, of course, he will, in fact, bring judgment. That's not our place to do, bring wrath against people. But we can try to convince people and try to influence people to have a better perspective, including the law and those in power. That's what we're trying to do. Okay, Mickey Kendall at Carnithia, maybe. I'm not sure I'm saying that right. You're going to hear me butcher some of these names, and that's okay. She says, periodic reminder that the Bible that's being used to justify abortion bans says life begins at first breath, not conception. So if you want to follow that, abortion isn't a sin or murder, it's medical care. Let me start at the last part first. Well, it isn't very caring. If you talk about medical care, Mickey, it's not very caring for the children in the womb. You know, medical care is very opposite of what the children are getting. It's very uncareful-like to be dismembering the babies in the womb, to be killing the person in the womb. That's not medical care for them. So mothers who are coming for abortion are by definition being narcissist and self-centered and selfish because they're not taking into consideration the persons in the womb that they're killing, their own children. It's not very caring. So, okay, the idea says life begins that the Bible says life begins at first breath. Really? Now, they are going to say this. You're going to hear people say this here and there. What they're getting this from is the creation of Adam, where it says that God breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. Yeah, but the Bible isn't trying to communicate how or when life begins through the natural reproductive process, which this is not. This is not reproduction. This is not being born or conceived in the womb. That's not what this is. This is creation directly by God. Now, you're going to be consistent. If you think the Bible is communicating that all of life from there on out through the reproductive process begins at first breath, you would have to consistently say that the Bible is also affirming that life begins only as a mature adult, at least mature enough to speak and reason and to obey God's command and to work, because that's what Adam was. He was created as someone mature enough to talk, reason, work in the garden, obey God's command, and to reproduce, because God commanded them to multiply. So you would have to consistently say that life only begins when you are mature enough to do those things, physically mature enough and intellectually mature enough. Now we could say abortion should be legal, of course, or justifiable by the Bible anyway, or that you're not even a life, biblically speaking, until you could do those things. That would be absurd. Furthermore, Eve was created from the man's rib. What would that imply about women? Are they born from a man's rib still yet? Well, obviously, this is not very good reasoning. This is very poor. And yes, abortion is murder because you are murdering a life. Therefore, it would be a sin. People don't know much about the Bible. At Michael, maybe Michael, I don't know, Gillette, at Michael Gillette, just a quick note for no particular reason. The Bible says nothing about abortion, but Jesus was very specific about feeding the poor, welcoming the stranger, and the wickedness of powerful men. All right. Again, it does say much about abortion every time Jesus talks about killing, every time Jesus talks about care for children and God's care for them, and many other things Jesus talked about relate. Again, it is an absurd thing to think that if Jesus doesn't explicitly address an issue, then he doesn't condemn it. He doesn't explicitly address human trafficking and child trafficking. You're going to think that nothing that he ever said addresses the issues indirectly? That's absurd, of course. We are all of a sudden demanding that Jesus explicitly addresses every issue that could come up under the sun, explicitly. Saying do not murder, love your neighbor as yourself, want to address these issues, of course. No, you got to address it specifically. That's ridiculous. But once again, we see inconsistency. Jesus talks about feeding the poor, welcoming the stranger, and the wickedness of powerful men. What was Jesus' point about feeding the poor? Why would anybody do that? Well, because who are the poor? Well, because it would be loving, right, to help those in need, those who are lacking, and those who are without. That's what the poor means. They do not have, they are poor, or they lack things that they need, and those things that are good for them. Well, abortion doesn't do good for that, right? A baby in the womb isn't able to care for himself, much like the poor. He doesn't have those things in order to care or fend for himself. Killing the babies in the womb would be inconsistent if you're concerned about feeding the poor. Because feeding the poor is a principle of caring for those who do not have the ability to care for themselves. Inconsistency, Michael. Welcoming the stranger. Well, babies are strangers to the world in which we live. Haven't been a part of it yet. It's not too welcoming to them to dismember them before they even get here, or to kill them when they just starting to arrive, or in the womb, preparing to arrive. How about the wickedness of powerful men? Well, powerful men would be men in leadership, right, that might pass, and in the Supreme Court, it was men, right, that legalized abortion through Roe versus Wade. That would be the wickedness of powerful men. Therefore, by your own reasoning, we should revoke that ruling. Holmes' sidekick at Jaded Abbey. I was sexually abused by father, got pregnant to him at 17, and had an abortion. I left home, went to college, and got my bachelor's and eventually master's in nursing. Without the abortion, I would have been dependent on my parents and subject to my father's continued abuse. First, it's a shame that any child would have to go through this kind of abuse. I mean, this is a horrific thing. But here's my point to you, Miss Abby, should I call you? You should not, in turn, abuse your children by killing them in the womb. Just as your parents abused you, their own children, you should not then, in turn and in kind, abuse your children. The horror that happened to you is not a justification for you bringing horror to the children in your own womb. There is no justification for it. Okay? This idea that without the abortion, you would have been dependent upon your parents and more subject to your father's abuse is not true. Actually, you could have turned your father into the law. Now, There are other resources, and there are other ways to have been helped as a child. Now, I get it. Perhaps at a young age, you're naive and not fully aware or even courageous enough as a child to seek help. I get it. I have sympathy for you. You see, what we should all do is have sympathy for all children. There should be sympathy for you. There should have been help for you. Your parents shouldn't have abused you. Do not, in turn, encourage the abuse of children. That's the very thing that happened to you. Killing children is not the answer. Isa at Filmy Ubari, I don't know. So weird when y'all say abortion should only be for rape, like a woman can only have the rights to her body when it's violated. Well, no. That's not something I say. I don't believe in abortion being for rape. How you come into the world, how you are conceived, does not determine whether you should be murdered or not in the womb. Now, that I realize in the culture that's going to be controversial, but the fact that you were conceived and raped does not make you not a person. You are still a human being and should not be murdered just because you were conceived in a way that is horrible. There's more inconsistency here. Like a woman can only have rights to her body. Well, do you believe in the rights to someone's body? How about the women in the womb? Well, they are females, right? There will be women when they become adulthood, will become adults, but they are females in the womb. Do they have rights to their body? Do you really believe in that? No, you do not. Alex Michelson at Alex Michelson. Before Roe v Wade legalized abortion nationwide, Gloria Allred was raped. She had an illegal abortion and almost died while bleeding out with a 106-degree fever. That's why I have this passion, so that our daughters, our granddaughters, never have to suffer what I did. That was a quote. That last sentence was a quote from Gloria Allred. She said, let me read it again, make sure we understand. She says, that's why I have this passion, so that our daughters, our granddaughters, never have to suffer what I did. So, in other words, I was abused, therefore, let's kill children. Doesn't make much sense. It's ridiculous. It's absurd, and it's unloving. Inconsistency, which happens in a lot of these people who support abortion, is a sign of error in their thinking, is a sign of faultiness, is a sign that their thinking is wrong. Inconsistency is a mark of falsehood. She says, so that our daughters and our granddaughters never have to suffer what I did. You're killing your daughters and your granddaughters in the womb. Again, words cannot describe the great inconsistency in your thinking. That's pretty simple. Elise, at Kitten Elise, she says, almost all abortions take place before the 13th week. Laugh out loud, you crying over something the size of a chicken nugget. Get a grip. So this is part of this arbitrary standard that people have for when you become a person. So, in other words, the premise of what she's saying is your size determines your value. Hey, Elise, is that what you believe? That a person's size determines your value? Of course, this is arbitrary and will differ from one person to another, what that size may be. If you get the right to determine that a person isn't valuable and can be killed because they're smaller than a chicken nugget, somebody else can determine that your size isn't big enough for you to be protected and that you can be killed and snuffed out. Got to be consistent. Who decides, Miss Elise, which size determines when a person is to be protected? When a person is a person? When a person should not be murdered? Which size is that? I have a feeling that you're not going to go for your size ever, right? You probably never support someone being killed at the size that you are because, of course, that would be very selfish. Or you are being very selfish because, of course, you don't want to be killed. You wouldn't want that to apply to you, so it wouldn't be your size, right? How narcissistic of you and inconsistent. I want to say that people bring up the Nazis, and everybody agrees the Nazis were bad, right? Well, that's what they did. They arbitrarily decided when a life was a life and when a person was a person. That's what they did. That's what you're doing. Danny, at Danny Park IRL. If your girlfriend or wife supports banning abortion, leave her. That's right. If she supports the banning of killing the children, you should leave her. That's good thinking. So only be with a person who supports killing another human being. That's a wise way to go. Seriously, leave her today. You have no idea what she's willing to do to you behind closed door and against your will. Well, what you're saying is you should only be with people that are willing to kill other human beings. I would say that is a worse position to be in. Then you're really with somebody you have no idea what they're willing to do to you. If they're going to kill somebody else, who knows what they could do to you? That's pretty foolish. Kathleen Bellew, at Kathleen Bellew, says, one historian of abortion argues that abortion stays at pretty much the same rate per capita over time, whether it's legal or banned. What changes when you make it illegal is how many women die from it. Well, that's inconsistent, right? Because how many women, females that is, are dying in the womb when you kill them? See, here's one thing that is certain. If you legalize or if you make abortion illegal, which many states would, if Roe versus Wade were overturned, you would have a lot less females dying from it. There ain't no doubt about it. So you care about women dying? No, you don't. Because women are just females and they're dying in the womb. Do you care about life or do you not? And I don't agree with the premise that there's going to be as many abortions if you make it illegal as if it's legal or as when it's legal. I don't agree with that. But nevertheless, this is inconsistency. We care about women outside of the womb dying, but not in the womb. Representative Barbara Lee, at Rep. Barbara Lee, says, I can't believe I need to say this in the 21st century, but having a miscarriage or abortion does not make you a murderer. Well, I'm not sure, first of all, that anybody ever did say that having a miscarriage makes you a murderer. Killing the child in the womb, that's not miscarriage, does make you a murderer. So I disagree. I can't believe I need to say this in the 21st century, especially in light of science, that if you put the child or human being in your womb to death, that is murder. You are killing the innocent, Miss Lee. Threatening women for their medical decisions, however, does make you a danger to society. Well, it's pretty dangerous to be a child in the womb in society because people like you are out there that are all for putting them to death and killing them. That's pretty dangerous. Their medical decisions. It's not their medical decisions we care about. It's murdering the people in the womb that we care about, obviously. But you see, this is what people say all the time. They want to argue as if the issue is really this. It's really a woman's right. It's really health care. It's really medical decisions. No, I don't care about any of that. I care about you killing the innocent. And that's what I'm going to focus the argument on. Frogan at Frogan says, banning abortion does not stop abortion. It stops safe abortion. People are going to die. Hey, Frogan, people die when you abort them. People are dying millions a year in the womb because of abortion. Inconsistent? Why, yes, you are. What an absurd way of thinking. Abortion does not stop abortion. No law against any activity stops the activity, at least completely, right? That would be absurd. That doesn't mean you don't pass the law. If the activity and the thing that people are doing is bad or wrong, like killing the innocent, there should be a law against it. Very inconsistent of you. It stops safe abortion. Abortion shouldn't be happening. You guys are the ones for abortion, not us. If you would tell people not to have abortion, and we would all step in together and encourage women not to have abortions, you wouldn't have any abortion at all. Dangerous ones, right? It's the responsibility of the people having the abortion, of the mothers having the abortion. The fact that if it was illegal abortion, women would have, abortions in the alley with coat hangers and all that, and it would be dangerous. And this ignores the fact that they shouldn't be doing it in the first place. It's not our fault that they're having the abortions. There should be more done to encourage them not to do it and to give young pregnant mothers help when they're in these difficult situations of being pregnant, like encouraging people not to commit fornication. Many other solutions to this besides, let's make it safe for them to kill the children in the womb. That's not smart. That's not wise. That's not caring. It's their responsibility in the end. If they have a dangerous abortion, that's on them, and perhaps on you a little bit if you encourage them to do it. Eric Bo Barrick says, anyone else not care what the Bible has to say about abortion? Plenty of people don't. But a lot of people out there are saying a lot about it, though, Eric. And so we're also going to respond to that. Like these people saying, the Bible doesn't condemn it. Obviously it does. Oh, by the way, something I forgot to mention earlier. I wanted to specifically address this. All these people out there saying that you're not going to stop abortions by making it illegal. Well, I did point out the inconsistency of that. One good response for all these people is, will laws against rape stop rape? I wanted to say that that's a great follow-up for them. Ask them that. Now, but let's say this. Anyone else not care what the Bible has to say about abortion? Well, you should. Here's the reality. There was a man who lived 2,000 years ago, Jesus Christ, and he claimed to have all authority in heaven and earth. He did rise from the dead, validating that very statement. He is a king. God has established a king on the earth, or a kingdom on the earth. Jesus is that king, and he demands submission. We, his disciples and followers, spread the gospel in an effort to change hearts, to bring people into submission to him. Not through the force of violence, but through a changed heart. That's what Christ wants. Now, he will bring about wrath and judgment when he returns again for those who haven't submitted. But I don't care if you don't care about the Bible. I'm going to continue as a representative of the king to spread his message and to tell people to submit to him. You should. It's not just a religious thing. He is a man who exists still yet. He's still king. And you are obligated to submit. I'm trying to get you, by change of heart and attitude, to submit now before it's too late and Christ returns. It's my job. So frankly, I don't care if people don't care about the Bible. If they don't want to have a discussion, I won't have it with them individually, but I am going to speak about it publicly, Eric Bo Barrick, because Jesus is a force to be reckoned with. He is king. The gospel is the terms of surrender before he comes again. You should take advantage. You will find that it will be good for you because he is a good king, and it will make your life much better. It is a good thing to submit to him. All right, those are my comments. I hope some of this was enlightening, help you as Christians interact. If you're not a Christian, hopefully it help you think about these things in a more consistent and honest way.